All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Datacated Show. My name is Kay Strashny, and I'm the founder of Datacated. Today, we have an extra special surprise. We have an amazing panel that I will put on screen in just a minute that we've put together to talk about agentic AI, AI agents. I think you've probably been hearing a lot about AI and agentic AI and sort of this new wave of technology that's going to do all of the work for us. It's automating like 80% of all business processes. There's so many quotes out there. It's replacing a lot of the human repetitive processes, but it's also being able to like take actions, and it's creative, and it's just so awesome. We're here to take things back down to reality. We're going to talk about some special use cases of how agents are actually being used or will be used in the future. And to help me with all of that, we've got a great panel. So I'm just going to show you a quick glimpse. We've got Claudia, Anthony, Ankit, Nisar, Andreas, Serge, Jepson, and myself here to really take your questions, guide you through some of what's happening in the world right now. We're in the end of January 2025, just to level set for those who are seeing this after the recording. And I think a good place for us to start is first to let you know that this is live, right? So we are taking questions, we're taking comments. If you disagree or agree with something we're saying, put that in the chat. I think the more collaborative, the more engaging we can make this, the more fun everyone's going to have. One quick question I wanted to start before we bring the panelists up on stage is just answer these. There are 3 questions. So they are all very similar. The first one is, would you trust an AI agent to process resumes, job applications for a role that you're trying to fill, right? So using agents for that. Would you trust an AI agent to analyze your data and provide you with insights? I think that's another great use case. And then lastly, would you trust an AI agent to recommend specific medical treatments for you or a loved one? So go ahead and add your comments into the chat, and I'm going to start bringing up our panelists. So for the panelists that I'm bringing on, a question I have for each of you is, what do you do? What industry do you cover? And how many years have you worked in AI? So we're going to go ahead and get started with Andreas Welch here. Andreas, welcome to the Datacated Show.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Andreas Welch. I'm the founder and chief AI strategist at Intelligence Briefing, a boutique AI advisory firm where I help Fortune 500 leaders figure out, well, how do we actually use AI in our company? What are the right strategies we should employ? And most of all, how do we bring our people along? You can also find courses that I recorded on LinkedIn Learning, and I'm the author of the AI Leadership Handbook, where I lay out the concepts, how you can do that successfully. Again, excited to be with you today.
Awesome. And how many years in AI?
8 years in AI and 23 years in the software industry in total.
Okay, awesome. All right, next up, Jepson Taylor. Great to have you here.
Had to take my mute button off. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, you're good.
Okay. Jepson Taylor, I've been in the AI industry for a while through a lot of different verticals, semiconductor, HR tech, quant finance. Maybe most notably, I was the chief AI strategist at DataRobot and Dataiku, and now I'm the founder and CEO of Viox. And how long have I been in the industry? I think I wrote my first genetic algorithm in 2003. So if that counts, then I would say that's how long I've been in this industry.
Over 20 years. I love it. Nice. And always a pleasure to have you. I think this is probably the 10th time you've been involved in Datacated something. So great to have you here. Next up, let's hear from Anthony Brown.
Yes, hi everyone. Anthony Brown here. I'm account executive over at Salesforce. Just joined them today. And as far as AI goes, I've been working with AI since 2018 over at Lockheed Martin. Is kind of where I started there, and it was really at the foundational stuff with machine learning and the hardware applications of AI at Lockheed. So worked through that, and then most formally, I was just over at Procurement Sciences, which is also focused on government contracts, and worked with them on bringing AI agents into the proposal process.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And congratulations on your new job again, starting today. This is great. And you're doing a live show on LinkedIn. I love this for you. All right, Claudia, welcome to the show here. Let's hear from you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Claudia Sally, and I'm a lead product manager at Disney. I've been working with AI for about like 5 or 6 years. I was on the predictive analytics, but then, generative AI came along and exploded, and then that's the area where I'm focusing now.
Okay, amazing. Next up, we've got Serge.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm Serge Macis. I'm a lead data scientist at Syngenta. I work in the agriculture industry, ag tech, digital agriculture in particular. And I've been in AI for almost 8 years and over 20 in IT.
Awesome. Thank you for that. All right, and Nisar.
Yes, hi. My name is Nisar Ahmed. I'm a lead decision scientist at CVS. I've been working in AI more, not as much experience as all of you, but my focus is more has been on Tableau. I've been teaching Tableau, an educator. I've taught analytics courses. I've also been involved in coaching as well, and I have a YouTube channel at Business Intelligence. It's BIZNIS Intelligence, and a podcast called the Data Nerd Podcast.
Amazing. And last but definitely not least, Ankit.
Hey everyone, Ankit here. So I'm a cloud innovator and AI innovator where I teach now, mostly working with cloud engineering platforms. And also I have experience over 8+ on cloud and AI. So my take on AI, like my learnings on AI started from cloud to AI. I started as a software engineer and then I work my way to learning cloud and then hands-on skills on AI. Mostly working a lot with Azure AI stuff. So yeah, good to have you here.
Amazing. Well, great to have you all here. Thank you so much for making time in your, I know, very busy schedules. I think let's just jump right into it and get started with, for those who don't know, what is an agent? What is an agentic AI? What is an AI agent? I think Jepson, Ben, I'm always going to call you Ben because you used to be Ben, but Jepson, let's start with you. What would you tell people? What is an AI agent?
The way I describe an AI agent is we're all familiar with ChatGPT and Anthropic, and we type something in and we get something out. That's called zero shot, in and out. The concept of an agent is where you have multiple steps to get a goal. And I think for most people listening, a lot of you actually naturally do behavior that falls into the category of agentic workflows. You might write some code and then give it feedback, or you might write something and say, give it feedback. So with agentic workflows, that's where we leverage APIs. All the LLM providers have LPIs, and you can write these fairly sophisticated workflows that can do all sorts of things. So I think the last thing I'll say on this topic is it can do much more than people realize. It can actually find new math. It can invent new algorithms. We're moving much faster than just writing a paper. But you can write a whole paper. If you wanted to write a 50-page LaTeX paper, that's you can have an agent go and do that for you.
So I know we've had chatbots, we had co-pilots, we have agents. Would you say those are all similar, or agents just more special?
When I think of agents, I think of just using the APIs directly. You have a lot more flexibility. If you're using something like Copilot, then you're going to be limited to the product and what it can do. So for anyone listening, I strongly encourage you to play with the APIs. Find reasons to have API keys in your code base.
Yeah, you make it sound easy and simple. Is it that easy to have someone, let's say, just sitting in the audience, and let's give them an identity? They're a new data scientist. They're about 2 years in. Is that something that they could just do on their own, or do they need access to special tools and skill sets?
No, they can definitely do it on their own. I think anytime someone is doing something in an LLM where they're frustrated because it's so labor intensive, do this, then that, do this, then that, do this, then that should raise the alarm in their mind. Then now it's time to go and roll up your sleeves and get API access. Because I think for everyone listening, you're going to find yourself stuck in those ruts where, oh man, this is so helpful, but I'm taking A and putting it over into B. I'm going to do this for the next couple hours. It's fairly easy. It's not rocket science compared to some of the other more traditional AI methods.
And I love the one comment we just got. I am an AI agent. Okay,
that's awesome.
So yes, reminder to those in the audience, you can. I see Aswin is here saying hello to Ankit. This is great.
Hey.
Yeah, if you've got comments or questions, we're here for the next, let's say, 40-ish minutes, and we're going to try to get through as much as possible. Because we have such a diverse and awesome panel here, I've created custom questions for each of you just so we can really highlight your very unique, specific backgrounds and knowledge on the various areas of agentic AI. When I was reaching out to panelists, some people said, "Hey, I'm not an expert in this." Like, yeah, really? Like, who is an expert in this? This thing just came out, really, like it's mainstream now. I know people have been building it in the background, but I think it's really, really great that you guys all got together here. First question I'm going to start with here is for Claudia. And Claudia, the question for you is, what is the easiest way for someone to get started with AI agents?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think because I'm a product manager, the way that I start everything is like I think about a problem, right? So you think about a problem and how I can solve this. And just to be upfront here, not everything will require AI and not everything will require agent, but it's a good way to start. So, and through a lot of like experimentation and iterations. So the first thing that I would say is like be familiar with the concepts, right? So Jepson was saying there about the different types of things that you can do. Like we have nowadays like workflows, right? That are, the basic that everyone knows, like one step after the other, if this, then that, right? And then you go a little bit further. So start iterating. There are a lot of products out there that help you out. If you don't know code at all, like I think a good way to start is make.com. So make.com is one place where you can start creating some agents, and it's very like plug and play, and you just like drop and connect to sources. So it's a very easy way that doesn't require code. But then if you want to play a little bit more, we have another one that I really like playing with them is the Crew AI. They also allow you to, they have some things out of the box that you can just like start putting your sources in there and start playing with it. But then you can go like one level beyond that. So you can actually try some things like customize a little bit, use a little bit of code. And then if you're a really good coder, you can do like the N8N that is actually like allows you to have a lot of flexibility.
Awesome. Just a quick follow-up question. So make.com and Crew AI, is there something that you've personally built in there that you want to share?
Yeah, so I've been building a lot of agents the past like few weeks or few months actually. So one interesting one that is like my main problem that I'm trying to solve is like I love traveling. So I am trying to create a travel agent that can do it for me like from beginning to end. It's getting there. It's not there yet. So I'm very excited now about Operator that OpenAI just dropped, right? Because allows you to do a lot of this. A lot of these tasks that will require the computer understanding what is in the screen.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I actually saw another content creator gave a little look behind the scenes for Operator, and she was actually showcasing, it was a similar thing where she was trying to book a dinner at a restaurant or a hotel or something, and the speed at which it went, it was just so excruciatingly slow. It was like watching an intern use a computer for the first time. I know it's the beginning stages.
It's not there yet, but I'm excited about the possibilities. I think all these new things that happen every day, especially in AI, a lot of this stuff is not fully baked. So that's why they are putting it out there so we can test. And
yes.
I'm excited about the future.
I agree, and I think it's great for us to be watching how it is right now, so we could say we were there on the ground floor. Great, thank you for that, Claudia. So next question is going to Jepson, and the question is, how are AI agents changing the way we code and build new algorithms? And I think while you're answering that, if you can also address Doug's question here around trust is in the APIs. Do you think APIs answers the issues and we're all good? So, and I can keep that up on screen for.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, can you restate the first question?
Yeah, so how are AI agents changing the way we code and build new algorithms?
I love the first question. So the way we used to code as humans it was pretty sloppy. So you can imagine having a single line of source code that might be 2,000 to 3,000 lines, and no one would actually complain if it was well written. Now with AI, it's in your best interest to have every piece of code is less than 1,000 lines. You're fighting for hyper modularization, and you're looking for much more nested structures. And the reason being is you can build these JSON objects that represent your code base, and that allows you to be much more effective with LLM agents. So you can actually ask an agent to go and do a feature upgrade. If it throws an exception, you can ask it to fix the exception. But you can only do that if the code is well formatted. If the code is all over the place and long, the LLMs will struggle with that. I think LLMs are allowing us to work on much more difficult problems. Think of how many hours some of you spent on fixing a menial bug where you're going on blogs and looking at reasons why this bug should be fixed and it's not working. All of that is going away, which is really exciting. And from the API, on the API side, I find that I'm constantly using a mix of API backends. And so when I'm doing my programming, I have an LLM class where it's very simple to configure. And so sometimes I'll use different LLMs for different types of tasks. And the trust component attached to the APIs, I did want to mention LLMs can have bad behavior with some of these agents. And so one of the bad behaviors that can show up is over-engineering. And then the other bad behavior, which is much more well-known, is catastrophic forgetting. So you can have an AI agent that is doing work, and you have code going into it to fix an exception, and it is suggesting a fix that is in the code that you gave it. So that's an example of catastrophic forgetting. And so to fight that, you have to fight really hard to have much smaller context payloads. Even though they say they have a 100,000 context window, we find that you really want to get under that 10,000 token limit to have consistent results. And then you have agents that check, are the single lines of source code coming out of this agent significantly less? And if they are, then you have to do an additional check.
Right.
Any other questions that I think I covered it, unless there's other.
No, I think you covered it. I just wanted to make a point. I was talking to my husband recently, and he hasn't really been using ChatGPT much, but he works with data and code. And sometimes if he gets stuck on a problem like a Power BI and there's some code, and he was mentioning, usually the process is you go to these Stack Overflow or whatever, some kind of place where you can say, hey, here's my problem. You have to kind of water it down, like, don't copy my intel or whatever. And he said he used ChatGPT, and he's like, it fixed it in a second. He's like, it just told me instead of a semicolon, you need a comma or some kind of small typo that it would have taken you hours to, or maybe days sometimes, to hear back from somebody else. It saves so much time.
And this is a good example for an argument for an agent, because for people listening, you could do an LLM, you could type that in and get an answer. But if you do agents, you can actually spawn up 5 or 6 parallel threads for the same exception. And then the ones that are getting forward. So if you have a really difficult problem, you can actually make a lot more progress than you can just with the browser.
There's a follow-up question here, Jepson, might be for you, from Raul. Is Python enough for creating an AI agent? I know, Claudia, you mentioned some make.com and Crew AI, but can people use Python?
They can use anything, honestly, because these are all just REST APIs. I know LangChain is very popular, but any programming language that you enjoy, Python's probably the most popular.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you, Jepson. Let's go on to Anthony. So Anthony, question for you is, how can AI help automate and simplify government acquisition processes? And again, I know you're new in this role, so congrats again, but yeah, stage is over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I've been in the GovCon space for about 15 years now. And any of those that are in the audience or maybe are familiar with it, there are, just to give some context, awards that are put out there in contracts, solicitations, similar to any type of business process where you're trying to submit an RFP and then get selected and win that contract with that company. In this case, it's the government, right? That's really the customer. And there are thousands of these that are released daily, and sometimes 20,000 per week of these contracts. And for companies to really position themselves, they have to get the most times at bat, basically. They've got to be able to get themselves out there and be able to show that they're interested in these particular contracts, get their company recognized. And one way that we're using agents is to be able to automate some of that process to draft what's called a request for information, an RFI. And the RFI can then be generated directly from research. So it's a couple different workflows. I've heard others talking here about some of the autonomous piece of an agent versus that process flow that you're going in when you're just chatting with a ChatGPT as an example. But we've taken these process flows that exist in this government space of doing the account research, figuring out who the contract officers are, what are the data sources that are out there, and then compiling all that together and then taking a personalization of a company basically and being able to then match and drive an algorithm that's going to match those to what are the particular government contracts that are most focused on your company, and then take that to the next step, which is then let's draft the first initial response. So based on a contract that's out there that I want to bid on, one that matches my company, and let me go submit a response. And just doing that is transforming the space and allowing companies to get more opportunities to actually win these contracts, and then allowing smaller businesses to compete with billion-dollar defense contractors and prime contractors, as they call them.
I think that's going to make it very interesting, having the small businesses being able to now compete. That's why I love this panel. Honestly, there's so many different perspectives, so many different industries. It's hard to keep your pulse on all of the moving pieces. That's an area I honestly would never have really heard about. So I'm really glad you shared that. Thank you. I want to move on over, and I see the questions coming in. Feel free to keep putting those into the chat, guys. We will be getting to them as we continue the conversation. I wanted to move on over to Nisar. So Nisar, I know you had something to share, so feel free to put that up on screen.
Yeah.
But you built a dashboard using a Tableau agent. Tell us about that, and when you're ready to share, we can go ahead and do that as well.
Yeah, sure. Let me just get this up. So here's, I'm not an expert in Tableau and in AI or agent, right? So my experience is more on, the Tableau side. I've been using Tableau for 8 years. I'm a Tableau ambassador. And so I really wanted to explore what the agent or Tableau agent can do for us in Tableau. I know Salesforce has this big focus on agent, and that trickle down effect is now being applied in Tableau. And so what I did was this dashboard that you see here is basically they come up, Forbes every year comes up with NHL evaluations of each team in hockey, right? And so I put the data together for 10 years, and I said, okay, I want to build a dashboard to visualize this. And so this is my end result. This is the dashboard I created, and I started using it I used Tableau AI, Tableau agent, sorry. So if I were to ask you here, like, what % of this work do you think the agent did for me? What would you guess?
Define work. Did you have to give it a lot of context?
I had to give it context, but when I say work, meaning developing and creation of the dashboard itself.
Clicking, drag, drop, typing.
Right.
Physical work. Okay.
Physical work, yeah.
I mean, let's all guess. Let's play this game. I'm gonna say 20%.
Okay. Any other guesses?
30.
30.
I'm gonna guess 90. It did 90% of the work.
Okay.
I'm gonna guess.
I'll stick with 60.
Okay. So
70.
all right. So we're getting a wide range, all the way from
92.5.
okay, all the way from 20 to 92, right? Here's what the amount of time I put in, Kate is probably closer to the number 20%. Now, does that mean that it was a failure? Not necessarily, because what it enabled me to do was I went in with a blank slate. I didn't have any ideas on how to build this dashboard. I asked Tableau agent, like, here's my data.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I want. What would you do? And what it did was it created ideas for me, which then allowed me to then take it further and make it more my style and and add my creativity. So here's what Tableau agent does. And it's particularly good for people who are new to Tableau or new to a certain skill or don't know how to do it. It gets them started. It gives them ideas. It does some of the manual tasks for you. But what it does not do is that creative side, like making this the colors, the creativity, like this interactive capabilities that I have on here. It's not there yet, right? So when I click, when I click, it does some interactive capabilities here. So
Okay.
I think that the takeaway that I got from Agent is that it's great, and I think from a business intelligence or data visualization standpoint, I don't know if it's there yet. I think the use case is more, Salesforce has a great use case, right? Like for customer service, for sales, it takes action, right? That's what an agent does. The action that it takes in Tableau or business intelligence, it's not going to give you 100%. It's not going to get you 100% there. But I think it's only just the beginning. So that's kind of my experience from it. So there's pros and cons from my perspective.
And it's early days, right? I think we are gonna see more improvement very quickly, especially in this space. But one question, and you can just give a thumbs up or thumbs down. So if an AI agent created this dashboard for you using the data that you provided it, would you trust if it created the full dashboard? You just said, here's what I want, visualize XYZ, and then created it for you. Do you trust that the results would be factual? I mean, I'm going to start with a thumbs up. So you guys all participate. Go ahead. Oh, come on, Jepson. That's cheating. Look at Serge.
As long as it has access to the sources that
Yeah.
it needs. But yeah, if there's any personalization that's going to happen that doesn't have those sources, I'm with you, Jepson and Andreas. It might even be like this because it's just going to generate.
Yeah.
And
It's
I think
depend on the LLM too.
one interesting thing that we need to think about too is like every vendor is calling their tools like AI agents, right? So not everything that you see out there are agents, right? So some of them is just like, oh, they created a new button or something to do something automatically, they're calling agents. And it's not to say that this is bad, right? But it's just there's this spectrum of agents right now in the market that, some just do like one thing and some are not there yet. But I think that's a good distinction to have. So
Claudia, I like what you're saying there, but I'll ask this, or I'll say this. I don't know if I wanted to do 100%. You know why? Because if it did 100%, there'd be no creativity out there. Like Tableau really loves the creative aspect. You have Tableau Public there that showcases everyone's individual creativity. You have the agent do everything for everyone. All the dashboards are going to look the same. So I don't know if I necessarily wanted to do 100%.
I agree. And we want that to take that piece that is very boring for us, right? So the creativity,
Exactly.
let it up to us. So yeah, so augment you, not replace you.
Yes. It's interesting. I think when ChatGPT was just becoming popular and everyone was using it to create all of the content for them, people thought that it would be actually creative. And, people, including myself, I'm probably guilty of using it a little bit in the beginning. We create poems and like, oh, look what I created, or, what me and ChatGPT created. And now we see so much of this content and it's like, okay, it's not creative. It is all different, but we all know that this was not you. Like we all know ChatGPT created this. So I agree with both of you. We still need that human factor, that creative aspect. I think we're drawn to that. We miss it. I hate seeing the content. I really do on social media that is all generated by AI. It drives me nuts.
I like to think of us as being the director.
Yeah.
So the human's not necessarily the creator, we're the director. So you get all this creative content and then you steer it.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
I mean, the graphic for our event, the graphic that we used for the event was created by ChatGPT because I wanted to call it like the elephant in the room, but I called it like talk about the AI agent in the room and it was an elephant. So I am still guilty of using it as the director, Jepson, and I nudged it 20 times over to give me the image I wanted. But even though I'm guilty of it, I'm still sick of seeing other people's AI content. My AI content is fine. I don't have anything to say about that.
From a developer point of view, I would say, having AI agents are like, okay, but how about the kind of output it generates? How do we basically manage those hallucinations. So we also need an agent which will basically do all the evaluation of the output that it generates, right? So, I mean, recently I have been to a Microsoft hackathon where basically they showcase how we can basically create a number of different kind of agents, which will basically, maybe let's say agent will do write a report for anything, but for let's say any hospital or maybe some cancer research on something, but how apt is, how correct it is. So we can have another agent which will basically evaluate those consistency of the or factuality of the output that we are getting in, and that's where the consistency is very important, and also we can see where we can like use like multi-agent approach, so to speak. And as a developer, recently came to know about there's something called Visual Studio extension called Prompty, where you basically use that to have generate with the help of API call, of course, generate so many content from related to your context, what you want to do with it. So it was a kind of fun experience doing that.
So it's called Prompting. Is that it? The extension name?
Prompty.
Oh, Prompty. Okay, great. Well, actually, Ankit, the next question is for you. So you work at H&M. So I wanted to ask, how is AI helping fashion brands like H&M to stay ahead of trends and improve their actual operations? So I'll give you the stage here.
Well, basically, we are currently helping out so many. I mean, when we say operations, we have to talk about like which part. Like, are you talking about more on like the retail side of it, or more on the like infrastructure part of it? So this is because I'm part of like infrastructure team, so I can give you more details on
focus on the area that you work in. So if you work in infrastructure, let's talk about that.
Yeah, so basically, we are basically trying to build a lot of systems internally to basically check what kind of errors or like errors and data are being generated. Like, let's say we have got these many of responses, incidents and everything, and how we can basically better evaluate those responses. And also, we are using a lot in some improving our communications within platform team, giving out information a lot of to different cloud vendors, not cloud vendor, different product teams, so to speak. So yeah.
Okay, yeah, thanks for sharing that. We had a comment here from Doug that I think most here would agree with. He says that as leaders, we should take a human-first approach to technology enablement, where humans do fit in, direct, own, and take responsibility for the tech. That's a future I want to live in. I think the more AI is helping us do stuff, I think the more we become hands-off, like, okay, AI can handle that now, and we just hand off as much as possible. I think we're going to have this shift in the next couple of years. We're like, okay, let's start giving this back to the humans because there's something that they can do better. So I do hope that we still get to really own and be accountable and responsible and not try to shift it all off to AI. Next question I had here was for Serge. So how is AI helping farmers grow more food while staying sustainable? We all eat food. I think we're all humans on this panel here. We're no agents here. I actually wanted to add like another streamer and just have like an agent, but not yet. Maybe next time. So yeah, Serge, I'd love to hear from you.
Thank you. Yeah, well, something we all do is also make decisions. And kind of segueing from what you said, well, yeah, that's always important to keep the human in the loop. But something as complicated as agriculture, more often than not, these decisions are like, it goes through a lot of different steps to arrive to them. So a farmer might really have a really tough choice between a seed that is drought resistant and one that perhaps can help them, increase yield or, protect itself against the pest. Maybe they want one that has a little bit of everything. And they also have to make other decisions like, timing, when to plant a seed, or having to do with applications of herbicides, pesticides, biologicals, what have you. These sort of things that actually will protect, what we call crop protection, will protect the plant. So all these processes, of course, they have to do with sustainability, because it's not a question of just spraying and praying or just throwing as many seeds on the field as possible. It's also a question of doing it in such a way that it's not going to degrade the soil, and it's going to be conducive to long-term sustainable growth of the farm, and therefore of the yield, and therefore of the amount of food that is produced. So it's all part of a cycle, and I think it's through my work at Syngenta, what we're working on is several kinds of agents, namely conversational agent to simplify this process to the farmer, so it's easier for them as well as their advisors to come up with these decisions, using all our internal knowledge bases, all our existing models. We have tons of models that predict all sorts of things, but also other kinds of agents that do other things like reporting, take a more proactive approach. So that way we can time things in such a way and look for like little cracks in the system, places where there's knowledge, but it's not always kind of dealt with proactively. And part of it is like, it's just really hard to sift through all this knowledge. But for an agent, it's very easy. And it's not the sort of job you would give a person tediously looking through, thousands of notes from advisors and satellite images and just looking for little things that maybe a person would miss, right? So we have the systems behind it. We have the knowledge from agronomists, but it's just a hard thing to apply at scale. So if we can leverage this technology, we're not really displacing anybody. We're just enhancing everybody's work.
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to change. And I think we can have another hour-long discussion on how this is going to change careers, right? Because in a way, we are going to be displacing some individuals. I think we can probably all agree that some things that were done, and then that's just the matter of how industries evolve and processes are automated, and those people will have to have a new skill set. So not replaced, but yeah, maybe moved to another role. Serge, you mentioned that one of the agents that you creating is a conversational agent. And George Firkin had a question here earlier on what's the first AI agent that a company should create. It seems like customer service and sort of these like chatbot types seem to be one of the first things that companies are building. I've talked to a nonprofit that built something like this. I was actually at Dreamforce a couple of months ago, a Salesforce conference where they were launching Agentforce, and I built my own like dedicated customer service bot. I haven't started using it yet, but they made it really easy. Like in just a couple of minutes, I told it what I wanted to do. It went on my website and sort of created an agent for me. But wanted to just hear from maybe 2 or 3 of you, what do you think is the first agent a company should create if they haven't explored agents yet? So anyone who wants to jump in, go ahead.
I would say the customer service one should not be the first one. I think you should start internally, right? Because there is we heard so many stories, horror stories out there of, selling cars for $1 and things like that. So I think that's not the first one. It's like the problem that you have inside that is like, that takes people the most time and it's the most boring task. I think those are the things that you should start first. And there's a lot of frameworks out there that you can, look into what are the issues and what are the values that they bring in. But I would say like customer service, I don't think should be the first. Okay,
so more internal. I like you called it a horror story. I call it comedy. Some of these are so funny.
It's horror story for the customers, like, especially. We hear like Disney when you have a brand that you have to protect. Those mistakes are very costly. So yes, you don't wanna make mistakes in public. Do you? Make your mistakes in private first. That's what I would say.
That's a great point. Thank you, Claudia. Okay, anybody else have a?
As an engineer, I would say mostly the product management tasks, so to speak. Like, okay, creating a Jira ticket assigning a ticket. So, and all the workflows between that, it should be like streamlined, and also just take an example of GitHub Copilot chat. So right now, if you see, you can basically with the help of that, you can create extension, create like pull requests within your VS Code. I mean, that could be one of those areas where we can use AI agents to basically automatically creating your pull requests. And also we have a Copilot review as well, which basically helps you to review all your code, like code bases and everything. Like it will basically give you some sort of that okay, this is the place where you might want to use this function in certain way. You can basically optimize your function in this X or Y ways. So that's the part I would say it would be fun to do a lot of repetitive engineering tasks that we do in the that would be great, Strad, I would say.
All right. Anybody else want to add?
Yeah, I'll add
Yeah.
on just knowledge curation and market intelligence, right? Those two things from a general perspective, the ability for an agent to have a tool that can access the internet, can browse and scrape websites or existing sources of data, pull that information back and then citate it so that you know where it came from, human in the loop, I think is a little safer of an option because you're able to actually validate where this information came from back to the source link. But those are some good resources, right, or good use cases, right, to go after because you have that visibility of where the information came from. And it's very time consuming, right, to look across hundreds, thousands, possibly websites, pull that information together and then summarize it and put it in a format that you might want to consume it in.
Yeah, the only issue I have with this, and I think it's a great use case, is there's so many AI generated knowledge pieces out there on the internet now that it's basically citing its own sources. Like, so I can create something that ChatGPT created, posted somewhere, and then when you're querying ChatGPT, it can pull that same article that it created, and it creates this sort of loop of chaos. I don't know how we're going to deal with it. It's not my problem to fix.
You can control the sources that it goes to, definitely, and use academic sources and things like that. So that would probably be the other safety part of it.
Yes, exactly. And Andreas, I think you had something else you wanted to add.
Yeah. So I really like the part that Claudia mentioned, right? Don't experiment in public, experiment in private. But I do see that the potential indeed in customer service, because I'm sure you get about 80% of the tickets you receive are for the same questions or the same issues. Now you have a lot of customer service internally as well, whether that's IT, that's finance, HR, procurement, whatever that may be. And so experimenting with it there and taking a deliberate approach, maybe to also do some A/B testing, right? You have humans go through the process today. You have the agent in parallel, and you evaluate how would that agent respond. Is it good enough? Why is it not good enough? What can we fix? What additional data does it need? So you minimize the potential risk and exposure, even internally. And then as your users and as you get more comfortable, you can increase that and balance it even more all the way towards the agent handling most of these things autonomously. So taking a deliberate approach, experimenting internally, but applying the same learnings and also externally in customer-facing scenarios.
If I might add on what Andreas said, I would say, well, you can even do other things, like, for instance, like sift through past conversations, figure out what might be the reason why they're calling back again today, or look through past problems they had, to see a pattern. That's the sort of thing an agent could do, and it's completely on the back end, helping the customer service agent provide better service. Of course, you would do this with a caveat that that has to be kind of validated, So if it's going to say, well, they're coming back probably because they were missing this part, right, in the last conversation, so maybe they didn't get it, right. It would have to have some kind of link towards that part of the conversation where it said that, right.
Yeah.
So that's always important.
Yeah, Serge, I think it would be really good if we had access to all the conversations we've ever had, if they're recorded. While you were talking, I remembered, when you used to call Verizon or something, I think they still do that. They say, this conversation may be recorded for training purposes, I hope they saved all those files because they can, get the transcript, upload that to a natural language processing model, and get probably, you know, some really good insights into all the problems that people are having and they're complaining about. But yeah, as long as we have access to that data, I think that's very powerful for sure. Andreas, actually, the next question was for you, and I think you started to address it a little bit in your prior response, but what advice do you have for turning AI hype, which I think there is still plenty of AI hype, into real business value?
You know, I think the exciting thing is that every time you hear in the news and market analysts say, oh, you know, we're hitting that trough of disillusionment, there's the next acceleration happening. Whether there was, you know, Gen AI, the hype is waning, all of a sudden we're talking about agentic AI. Just yesterday with the broad coverage of DeepSeek challenging OpenAI's leadership, we expect that innovation again will be skyrocketing if the costs drop and the performance is matching leading models. So in all of this, right, it's super easy to get lost and to get lost in the headlines. It's also super easy to chase those hype topics and headlines and say, we need to figure out what is our AI strategy. We need to do something with it. So let's start somewhere. And let's start it as an IT project or as a technology project or as a data project. And I see the biggest challenge with that in organizations, large and small, is that it's actually much more than a technology problem that you need to solve. But it's a business problem. So technology needs context. Technology is an enabler to solve a business problem, and you need to understand what that problem is. So your technologists need to work together with the business teams, and you know, in most companies, that isn't always the best relationship, or maybe you don't even know who you should talk to. But you need to find that out, and you need to understand what is the problem that somebody in finance, in HR really has. Is it about how do we handle all these resumes that we're getting, all these applications, and we're not able to go through them quickly enough, or finance transactions, or whatever that may be, and really start there. So start with the business problem, so you can measure and understand what are we actually trying to fix, and use technology as an enabler. And by the way, that's also the premise of the book. So I recommend you check that out too, how you can, you know, put all of that together, because again, it's a lot more than technology, and it's a people transformation most of all.
Show us the book again, Andreas. Slow-mo. You did it too fast.
Sure. So that's what it looks like.
Up. There you go. Thank you.
I love the book. I read and I gave it as a gift for a bunch of my leaders here.
Oh, look at that. Nice. That's amazing. Cool stuff.
Awesome.
I love that. So, Andreas, thank you for sharing that. I just want to quickly move into an area that I think people are wondering about, right? So let's say we have a business problem, we solved it, we have agents, they're deployed. Now it's externally facing Claudia, it's no longer internal, and the agent did make a mistake. It did sell a car for $1, right? So my question, and you know, whoever wants to address this, please volunteer, is who is responsible, right? There was data that was collected, so there's the person that collects the data, or the team that collects the data, that cleans it, preps the data, and loads it into natural language processing, and then someone who engineered the chatbot to accept questions and interact with customers. There is the, you know, the business leader who is in charge of making sales, and then there's the customer who maybe tricked the chatbot into giving it a car for $1 because it found a loophole. So who is actually, in your mind, and this could be an ethics question, I guess, who is responsible for this mistake? Is the customer keeping the car for $1? Yeah. Jepsen, are you volunteering or are you responsible?
Yeah, I'm responsible.
Okay.
So I think the AI product owner is responsible. I think AI has a bad reputation in general as an industry, shooting from the hip and asking questions later. It's the Wild West. And there's a lot of lessons that can be adopted from industrial engineering. So having a potential problem analysis meeting, like this type of thing should have been anticipated, and there should have been safeguards to attempt to catch something like this. Having this happen and finding out about it for the first time in the wild, I would say that was the fault of the AI product leader. They didn't go through the necessary steps to put protections around this. And then if it does happen, unfortunately for AI products, sometimes you have to pay tuition. Stuff like that just happens. And you would wish an anomaly detection or something would have flagged it for human review. And maybe you would have added that to your process. You require human review for any, strange anomalies.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't have any of that in place and you just sell a car, then it's the AI product leader's fault.
Yeah, I would say that, we have those concepts, right? The human in the loop and the human on the loop. I was actually writing about this. So the in the loop is like before you close a transaction like that, right? So you could put someone there to just go and check everything before you say sold, right? So that's one of the things. And the other thing, the human on the loop, basically someone that is just monitoring to see like, hey, send me any, uh, information that was like above or below this threshold, right? So we should put things in there. But I think the other point there would be like risk analysis, right? Has to be a part of any AI product, right? And I think a lot of people in the rush to have something out there is just forgetting some of the basic principles, right? That we have in product and we have in project management that, you need to try to anticipate some of those things.
Yeah, and I
From
think
an
in the
engineering
future.
perspective, I would say, sorry,
Go ahead.
can I go?
Yeah.
Hello, can I go?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So from engineering perspective, I would say when we are developing AI systems, we have to make sure like the system is going through a lot of grounding process, and also taken into consideration of responsible AI frameworks. That how your trained model is basically behaving, and how better or how much fine tuning efforts have you put in as an engineering or AI leader. And that will basically, I mean, the more regression testing it should go under, and the better. And also I mean, since even though the upcoming models have a lot of reasoning capabilities, but it's still there are chances of hallucinations. So we need to see there's something called F1 score when you are basically like testing your model from the trained data sets. So you have to basically check those scores. Like it should be like up to the par. Like should have a threshold like 85 to 90% of threshold that it should pass. Then only you should ideally put it into production. In my point of view.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
But I want
thanks.
to add that
Go ahead, Andreas.
it's also easier, right? I think it's also easier to say this after the fact, right? When the thing happened, right? The LLMs were pretty new. You hear also a lot about a lot of FOMO, right? If you don't innovate, you're left behind. Others will eat your lunch. So this narrative doesn't necessarily help, because then others are trying to rush and are rushing their solutions to market, maybe without sufficient experience, again, because the technology is new, or they might not have considered all these things because maybe they're unknown, or we haven't had these cases. So I think it's an interesting time in one hand, but on the other hand, you absolutely need to do your due diligence, but you can also do that to the extent that it's public knowledge of things and that you should do in best practices you should adopt.
Andreas, can you see my notes? I literally just wrote perfect or done is better than perfect ? Because the last question I wanted to ask the panel, as I know we're close to wrapping here, and you could just give me one word. We'll go in order. I know companies are rushing to get agents out, and part of it is kind of the FOMO of like, oh my God, but they're doing it. I need to get an agent. Sometimes they don't even need an agent. They're just building it because they now have the capability. And others are sort of holding off because they think there might be a mistake and they'll face public embarrassment. So they're holding off and maybe lagging way behind. So are you team done? Just like get it done and get it out there into the wild, see what happens? Or are you team perfect? So I'm team done. Like I'm not waiting for perfection. If I can get an agent out there that can handle all the dedicated queries, I'd rather get that out there than wait for perfection. So done or perfect? Andreas?
It depends on the impact and what's at stake.
Your business, Andreas.
My business, human in the loop. Out, but with a review.
Going to Jepson.
Done.
Done. There you go. Anthony?
Done.
And Keith?
Done.
Nissan?
Done.
All right, Serge, are we all done?
Internal done.
Claudia?
I'm gonna be with Andreas because, especially in the business that I am, it's a lot of risk. So
Yes.
I don't need to be perfect, but need to be very close to perfect.
Got it. And I think it is definitely driven based on the situation, based on the impact, the potential impact on a human, a customer, or just an outcome, could be even financial. So I completely understand. Thanks for playing the game. Okay, at this stage, I want to thank you all for joining the panel. I think a great way for us to end is, again, and then we'll go backwards. We'll start with Claudia. For people who want to reach out to you, if they have another question, if they want to connect or follow, I know you all create great content. That's where we're all here. Just let people know where's the best place for them to follow you. If you got a website, if you got a book, if you have a course, just go ahead and plug. We'll start with Claudia and work our way back.
So I'm on LinkedIn, Claudia Sally there, like my name. So you can find me there, connect with me. I love talking about AI, travel, Disney. So that's the best place.
Great. Serge?
Yeah, you can best find me on LinkedIn. I'm also on Blue Sky, on Threads. Yeah, you can also look for my books. My upcoming book, Do It Yourself AI, DIY AI, is also another resource. It's going to talk about this as well. And yeah, glad to have joined.
All right, great. Nisar?
Yeah, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, search me by name, or you can search on YouTube, Business Intelligence. That's spelled the BIZNIS Intelligence. And the Data Nerd podcast, you can search on all major podcast platforms.
Amazing. Ankit?
Hi. So basically, you can find me on LinkedIn, GitHub, and yeah. So I go with there's a website called ankitra.cloud. So you can basically go there, it's a portfolio website, and you can find all my links there. And if you want to discuss more anything related to cloud and AI, I'm up for it.
Great. Anthony?
I'll make it simple. LinkedIn, that's where I publish all my content for the most part. You can connect with me on there. And I have a calendar link that's booked right in my profile too.
Okay, perfect. Jepson, Ben?
Also on LinkedIn, jepsontaylor.com for speaking and things like that. And I'm trying to be more active on X, and I'm very active on Strava for all the ultra runners that are out there. So
Yes, you are. You're active in the forests and mountains. We see the pictures.
right.
Awesome. And Andreas?
Perfect. So LinkedIn, that's where I publish my content. That's also where you find my podcast, live stream, newsletter, LinkedIn Learning for courses on how business leaders can use AI agents and what you need to be aware of. And don't forget, if you want to figure out how to do that in your business, the AI Leadership Handbook is your resource to make that happen.
Amazing. And you can find me on LinkedIn, on YouTube. If you're watching the show, you're probably watching it on my LinkedIn and YouTube anyway. So thanks for following. And thank you so much for the panelists for sharing all of your great insights and experiences. And thank you for those in the audience who joined us live and engaged. Really, really appreciate this. Thanks for all coming together. Stay dedicated. I'll see everybody online. Bye,
Great.
everyone.
Yeah,
Bye.
thanks.
Bye.
Bye.